Welcome to Andy and Ari On3, presented by Culver's. We are winging our way to Green Bay right now. To be there for the Culver's Great Wisconsin Tailgate, we'll be across the street from the frozen tundra of Lambeau Field. We will have giveaways. We will have tailgate games. And of course, special guests. And we talking NFL draft, saying goodbye to our favorite college players as they move on to the NFL, complaining about the NFL teams that undervalued our favorite players and overvalued guys that have really long arms and ran fast but did not produce in college. Cannot wait to get there, Ari. We got the text. What's everybody's favorite cement mixer?
I was going to say, it's a heck of a text to get in the middle of a Tuesday afternoon of what your favorite cement mixer is. I was just like, I don't know. All of them?
Well, they got a new Skittles one that I really, really want to try. But the Oreo one is pretty spectacular. Like, it's really hard to go against the just vanilla with Oreo pieces in there.
May be the dumbest question anyone's ever asked you. I say that to you a lot. Are Oreos sweet? Are they sweets, or is that a savory snack?
They're sweets. They're like 1,000% pure sugar.
No, I know, but there's like the wafer part of it, the crunch part of it, like there's a distinction between like cookies to me and candy, right? And like,
it's not candy, it's cookie. It's a baked sweet as opposed to a just confection.
What I'm trying to say though is I'm already not a sweets person, just in general. You know that about me.
Mm-hmm.
So I usually don't like to put candy in my sweets. Like, I like the closest thing to carbohydrates, like bread form, that I can get. So like wafer, cookie dough.
I feel like you'd be more of a Butterfinger guy or like a peanut butter cup guy because you get some savory there.
I like cookie dough and Oreo in my sweets.
Nothing wrong with that.
But
nothing
River
wrong with that.
But contraption with candy and ice cream a while back that I would never have ordered in a million years, and I tried it and it was really good. So I'm ready to open my horizons. And
let's remember, there's also ButterBurgers and cheese curds, which are right up your alley.
Yeah, and fish sandwiches. You think I can bring fish to the draft? I mean, like, can I put a special request?
I think, listen, we're going to meet the CEO of Culver, so yeah, I think you can make all the requests you want.
Yeah, okay.
We're going to be with the big shots. So
good.
Join us, Lambeau Field. You can actually come by and see us, say hi if you're in town for the draft or if you just live in Green Bay. But we'll be doing shows from there. So, of course, watch on the On3 Sports YouTube channel. Listen on all your favorite podcast platforms. We'll be there. Ari, before we get to our mailbag segment, Dear Andy, Dear Ari, which leads off with a question from me because I've just been really interested in it. A little bit of news to cover. We have dates and times for playoff games this coming season. The College Football Playoff and ESPN announced the dates and the times. So are you ready? This is for the quarterfinals, the semifinals, and the national championship game. Obviously, the first round games, because we don't know where they're going to be yet. We don't know which games are on Saturday. We don't know which one's going to be on Friday. But we got some dates and times. So here we go. Playoff quarterfinals. New Year's Eve. Guess who's spending New Year's Eve at your house?
Is there one in Cotton Bowl?
Cotton Bowl. 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, 6:30 p.m. local time at Jerry World. I'm hanging out with Ari on New Year's Eve. All right.
My wife, when she married me, or when we were dating and then got married, goes, so I'm never going to get to see you on New Year's Eve ever? And I'm like, nope.
This year you will.
Yeah, but I will be able to, I guess, this year. But I haven't spent New Year's with my wife, I think, since we met. I don't know if we've ever had New Year's Eve.
The question is, which direction are we flying the next day? Because we're doubling up. If we're spending New Year's Eve at your house,
West,
we're saving the company's money. So we're doubling up. We're either flying to Miami or flying to Pasadena, LAX, or maybe Burbank. Or we're going to New Orleans.
It might be New
Miami.
Orleans because New Orleans is a drive.
Well, and New Orleans is also a night game, so that makes it a little easier. So the Orange Bowl will be noon Eastern on January 1st. The Rose Bowl, 4 o'clock Eastern on January 1st. Sugar Bowl, 8 Eastern on January 1st. The semifinals, Thursday, January 8th, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, the Fiesta Bowl. Friday, January 9th, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, the Peach Bowl. So easy. We'll be at both of those, I would assume. And then the national championship game Monday, January 19th in Miami. Well, in South Florida. It'd be lovely Miami Gardens, Florida.
Yeah, so it looks like we're going to be doing Cotton Bowl, Sugar Bowl. Because that'll make sense logistically.
And that's a rough wake up and hope your flight arrives on time if we're flying to Miami for a noon kick.
Yeah,
I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, because we'll be up till 2 a.m. the night before. I don't know. I mean, I guess we could let the matchups decide.
Probably. And remember, this year and only this year, the old bowl alliances with the conferences still matter in terms of matchup. So the Sugar Bowl is going to have your SEC champ. The Rose Bowl is going to have your Big Ten champ. The Orange Bowl is going to have your ACC champ. So we can kind of figure that out already if those guys have buys. So there you go. Wow.
It's never too early to start
real.
thinking about that. It's never too early. I mean, like, it is real. I mean, listen, we're almost to May. Okay. I mean, we're blazing through this offseason pretty quickly. And this past week went by pretty quick. We had a pretty good week. And now we're going to the draft. And the next thing you know, it's going to be May. And, we're going to be right around the corner.
Wait, isn't that what NSYNC said? It's going to be May. All right.
Look at that. Pop culture reference. I understood.
Time for Dear Andy and Dear Ari. I'm going to start with a Dear Ari question because I'm the one asking it. Because I've been thinking a lot about this in terms of the NFL draft. And some of the discourse has been interesting to me because it's weird. In one way, it confirms my previous thinking. But in another way, I think I may be wrong. And I wonder if the NFL is wrong. But we don't actually know if this is what the NFL thinks. It's just, we'll get into it. Okay. All right. Here is my Dear Ari question. Will Cam Ward be the only quarterback taken in the first round?
No.
Okay. You were very sure about that. And I am glad you said it that way because I'm not so sure about that. Because I'm not sure, like everybody I listen to that I trust, like your Daniel Jeremiah's and your Dane Bruglers, they say that Cam Ward's the only guy with a first round grade among the quarterbacks. And what they mean by that is they sort of do it independent of each draft. It's like if it was an average draft, which of these guys would you have a first round grade on?
Which is the right way to do it, by the way. Yeah.
Yes. So Cam Ward is going to be the pick of the Tennessee Titans. Adam Schefter reported that on Tuesday morning. So like Cam Ward's going number 1. The question is, will one of the other guys, Shedeur Sanders, Jackson Dart, Jalen Milroe, am I missing one? Who might sneak in?
To the first round?
Yeah. I don't think so. I don't think I'm missing one. No, and this is the problem here.
Yeah. I mean, will Cam Ward be the only quarterback taken in the first round means that you're anticipating there's a possibility that Shedeur falls pretty far, right? Like,
right. And my thing was, and I've said this most of the draft season, is Cam Ward's the only one I would take in the first round. But the more I think about Shedeur, I think there's either a smoke screen going on here or somebody's going to get a bargain because either somebody wants to jump up and take Shedeur, like somebody like the Steelers who need a quarterback, they pick at 21 and they want to jump up, or it's somebody like that.
So the reason why, like, here's the thing, like I got talked into Shedeur. Okay.
I talked myself into him today, and I'll tell you why. Do you know who led the FBS? Like the entire country in completion percentage this year?
I think I could probably guess based on the framework of this question.
Yeah. It's Shedeur Sanders. He completed 74% of his passes despite the fact that he was getting blasted on a bunch of plays. Blasted. And they didn't play an offense where he was throwing horizontally every single time.
Yeah. The thing that made me buy into him was the dirty pocket thing.
Exactly. That's what I've been saying. And it's interesting because I've said I don't trust any of these guys other than Cam Ward. But I keep coming back to that. Like, he's probably going to be the one of these guys, of all of these guys, who plays behind a better offensive line in the pros than he did in college.
Yeah, like I like
relative to the defense
that Shedeur could have been incredibly efficient, despite the fact that he didn't have great offensive lines during his time there. That said, I also wonder how much having one of the best players we've ever seen on his team in a conference that isn't loaded helped. Not to mention that some of the other receivers that they had on their team were also really, really, really good.
Were very good. And I heard Daniel Jeremiah say he thinks that Travis Hunter, the Browns are probably taking Travis Hunter. Daniel Jeremiah said he thinks Travis Hunter is going to be primarily a receiver with like a nickel corner package. And everybody else is thinking the other way, that he starts at corner and plays occasionally at receiver. But it's
didn't like, Travis Hunter come out and say that he didn't want to go anywhere that won't let him play both? Am I making that up? I thought he said that
he said he'd rather quit football. I don't think there's any chance that he's not going to get to play both in some way, shape, or form, but it'll be majoring in one and minoring in another.
Yeah.
But I just assumed it was major in corner and minor in receiver.
That's what I thought too. But if there's anybody on earth that could mess it up, it would be Cleveland. So, they'll probably put him at left tackle if they draft him. I do think the answer to this question is a definitive yes, not because I'm 100% bought in on Shedeur Sanders' value. I am 100% convinced that NFL teams will act and do irrational things in order to secure a quarterback when they're desperate for one. So even if he falls out of the top 20 somehow, you'll have 10, 12 picks where every team that comes up on the clock is probably going to get phone calls about trading up to get him. I'm sure that somebody will take him in the 20s if it gets to that.
Well, let me throw out another warning to people, to NFL teams. If you don't have a first round grade on these guys. So we've talked about where you can find quarterbacks, and I think you've said it's really not a great idea to go bargain hunting. So I just did the numbers on it, Ari. So there are 27 teams that have definitive starters going into this season. I left the Browns off because I don't know who the starter is going to be. But they actually, whether it's Kenny Pickett or Joe Flacco, or they take somebody in the first round, it's going to be a first rounder. But so of the 27 teams that have defined starters, how many of them do you think have a starter who was selected in the first round?
Wow, that's a good question. I would say 12.
22.
Whoa, really?
Over 80%. So your non-first round starters who are established: Dak Prescott, Jalen Hurts, Brock Purdy, Geno Smith, and Russell Wilson. Yeah. And the thing is, if the Jets start Jameis instead of Russell, take one more away because Jameis was a first rounder.
That is a really fascinating thing that I should have known the answer to and didn't, because I got I have the Brock Purdy brain where everybody always thinks that everybody's like that, but it is
we remember all the guys who weren't, and we think there's more of them.
That's right. And it is to me, just as a person who's followed the Browns their whole life. Okay, go draft Travis Hunter. He's an incredible player. But if you do not have a quarterback in the NFL, you don't have anything. I think the Browns definitively proved that last year because they were a pretty good team. But
if there's not a quarterback that you feel is worth a first round draft pick,
but that
punt it to next year.
That they've been punting it to next year for 25 years. So let me just say this though. I agree with you. I don't think that missing on your top 5 pick is as terrible financially as it's been in the past. And I think that you recover from that quicker. But at the same time, too, in a year like this where only one quarterback has a first round grade in that metric, do you have to alter the way that you draft as a result of the scarcity? Or do you just go, like, if you're a GM, or do you just go by the grades?
I think you just go by the grades because what I just said, 22 of the 27 established starters were first-round draft
but
picks.
how many of those 22 players were taken in the first round out of necessity? How many of them were top 7 picks, and how many were in the back half of the first round?
Well, we can look at that. So one of them was in the back half, Lamar Jackson, and I think we can argue that they just blew it with him. Like he should have been picked much sooner. But Kyler Murray's the number 1 overall pick. Michael Penix Jr.'s top 10. Bryce Young, number 1 overall. Caleb Williams, number 1 overall. Jared Goff, number 1 overall. Okay, here's your other one.
I love
the back
how, like,
half of the first round.
We're in last year's draft, by the way. That's hilarious.
Jordan Love is the other one from the back half. That's it. Everybody else was in the Jordan Love and Lamar Jackson were in the back half. Everybody else was in the first part.
Of the 22 quarterbacks who are established, I don't know if established is the right word, who we know going into the season are the starting quarterbacks. How many of them were taken in the last 2 or 3 drafts?
It's quite a bit. So Bryce Young, Caleb Williams, JJ McCarthy, Jaden Daniels,
Justin Fields,
Bo Nix, CJ Stroud.
Yeah.
I'm not including Justin Fields here because I think the Steelers are going to take a quarterback. I don't have the Steelers on here because I don't know who their quarterback.
Starting quarterback for the Jets.
Oh, for the Jets. I had Russell Wilson as what?
And Russell Wilson
is on the Giants. Duh. Yeah. You're right. Justin Fields. Sorry. Justin Fields for the
But
Jets.
That's also now 5 years ago too, so I don't know if that counts. But, like, how many of the players who we know are really good? Like, being the starter going into the year doesn't mean that you're good, but I guess that's besides the point, because a lot of times you have a 2 or 3 year window of teams who take players in the top 15 are married to starting them for a few years before giving up too. So, like, I don't know if we're definitively sure that Michael.
Exactly. Like JJ McCarthy, we have no idea if he's going to be any good, but we know that they've decided to go with him.
Like, how many of the players from last year's draft are even established at this point? Like, is Bo Nix the long-term starter in Denver? Did you see enough last year?
I think they're very happy with him.
He was awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. I think they're really happy with him. Obviously, CJ Stroud now a 2-year starter. Like, he looks like he's going to be the franchise QB for the Texans for a long, long time.
Yeah.
But
yes, I think somebody, to put a bow on the question, will trade into the late first round if it comes to that.
Yeah, it is. Oh, Tyler Shook is the other guy we need to talk about as a potential first rounder. So it would be Cam Ward's going to go number 1. Shedeur, Jackson Dart, Jalen Milroe, Tyler Shook. Those are the other ones that we think probably get drafted in the first couple of rounds.
There's a 0% chance Tyler Shook's the first round draft pick, right?
It's non-zero.
It's non-zero?
It's close to 0, but it's non-zero.
I will eat every Culver's flavor of shake, of ice cream.
Don't threaten me with a good time, Ari.
That would be miserable for me.
There's nothing miserable about Culver's fresh frozen custard. It's pleasurable every time.
You know what you should do? You should try to eat all of them.
Again, don't threaten me with a good time.
Yeah. You're big on eating challenges.
I'm happy to do it.
So what's the strategy tomorrow night, by the way? Speaking of this, since we're getting in tomorrow night, like, are we just going to not eat dinner tomorrow and make sure that we're primed for Thursday, or what?
It's not a bad idea.
I've been seeing a lot on Instagram that, like, controlled fasting for 3 days every 6 months is really good for killing cancer cells. Is that true?
I don't know. I am not a cancer doctor, but all right. So
I love that. Next. All right. Like, you always do that. Like, when I take it off to an uncomfortable place.
Moving along. No, we go next to Justin's question. Which position group is the deepest in this year's NFL draft? Justin feels like running back is pretty deep. And Justin's right. Running back is pretty deep, but it is not the deepest. The deepest is edge rusher. Ari and I were talking about this before the show. It's insane how far down you can go and still get somebody who could sack the quarterback.
Yeah, I'm like looking at the list that you were looking at because I hadn't looked at it yet. And you start getting into like the low teens, high 20s, and you have players who are very productive in college. Like you said, Jack Sawyer at Ohio State is 17, and he made
This is the PFF list. Yeah, Jordan Birch is number 19.
Jordan Birch is 19. Jordan Birch is 19. I don't know.
Kamen Rucker, who's very good at North Carolina, 26. Ty Ingram Dawkins is at Georgia, number 28. Antoine Powell Ryland, who is really productive at Virginia Tech, is at 27. Like, yeah, and then obviously the top of the list is really good. So Abdul Carter is going to be the first non-QB off. Well, I don't know. Travis Hunter might be the first non-QB off the board, but Abdul Carter will be the first edge off the board. Mike Green from Marshall, like when we were at the Senior Bowl, Ari, that dude was awesome. Like, yeah, I felt so bad for the offensive tackles who had to go against him. You got James Pierce Jr. from Tennessee, Nick Scorton from Texas A&M. So an interesting thing on Nick Scorton, and if you watch Nick Scorton play at A&M last year, he was huge. That's not the Nick Scorton that's going to play in the NFL. The Nick Scorton that's going to play in the NFL will look a lot more like the one who played at Purdue, because I think he played in the 280s for A&M last year. I think he's going to play in the 250s in the NFL.
Yeah.
Which makes me wonder, because a lot of people have Shamar Stewart going ahead of him in these mock drafts. And I always have a real problem with that as someone who follows college football. Like, they played on the same team. They play not exactly the same position, but they both do the similar things. Why wouldn't you take the one that is much more productive?
Yeah.
Against the same competition on the same team.
Yeah, you're big on that, but I'm with you on that. I'm just like looking at the list here, and like Josiah Stewart
from Michigan, yeah, exactly.
14, it's like, if there's one thing I know for sure is I'm drafting a Michigan defensive lineman. Like, you get that guy in the 4th round or whatever. I don't know. Edge rushers are a premium position, so maybe
listen to 8, 9, 10 on the PFF rankings. Or actually, 8, 9, 10, 11. Landon Jackson from Arkansas,
dog,
also incredibly productive edge rusher. Braden Swinson from LSU.
Dog.
Princely Emmanuel from Ole Miss.
Dog.
And JT Tuimoloau.
Dog.
Wait, 12's Jared Ivey from Ole Miss.
It is. And I've seen NFL draft analysts say that this is one of the deeper edge draft classes of recent memory. So, I didn't even look this up. I just knew it was edge. And then when I looked at the list, I was just like, wow, that's insane. But also too, like when you think about some of the position groups that in college football are really stacked, and this will kind of bleed into another question that we have later on in the show, but like, can you imagine like the receiver draft in 2 years?
Oh, it'll be incredible. It's weird because I thought every receiver draft, just because of the rise of 7-on-7, everybody having just so many more reps playing receiver, I thought that we're going to have like a never ending, everything just gets better at receiver. But this is actually a pretty thin draft at receiver.
Yeah.
The other position group I'd say that is really loaded is tailback, because obviously Ashton Genty is super special, but I will warn teams, don't spend a 1st-round pick on Ashton Genty unless you've already got a good offensive line. Like, running back is a luxury item. You have to have a good offensive line first. Like, yes, it worked out great for the Lions when they took Jahmyr Gibbs. They already had a great offensive line. The Eagles spent money on Saquon Barkley last year because they already had a great offensive line.
Yeah.
Like, Saquon Barkley would not have been nearly as good if he stayed with the Giants, because they didn't have a good offensive line.
I do love the return of the Mac when it comes to like the running back position being a big, a big position again. Like, I do think that there should be like a regression back to the mean in terms of like valuing those players. And like Saquon Barkley is one of the biggest freaks that the NFL has ever seen at the running back position. But like, I think that we've seen teams that run the ball very well and have very reliable running backs have been better offensively lately. So I think he's a worthy pick, but you don't want him to run into the center's ass either.
Exactly. And you've got Omarion Hampton that you can take probably near the bottom of the 1st or early in the 2nd. Cam Scatteraboo, our guy Dylan Sampson from Tennessee. Like, Dylan Sampson was awesome.
Yeah.
Caleb Johnson, Trey Henderson, Quinshon Judkins. I mean, these are guys that you can probably get near the bottom of the 2nd round. RJ Harvey from UCF, Damian Martinez from Miami. We saw him at the Senior Bowl. DJ Giddens from Kansas State, who was just awesome. Devin Neal, every video game player's favorite running back. Like Jarquez Hunter.
The question that I do have is, of all the best running backs in the NFL, if the draft mirrors like the draft positioning, and I know it's been harder lately to get, rarer lately for running backs to go in the first round. Bijan was kind of a unicorn in that regard. But how many of the most productive running backs in the NFL were amongst the first 3 running backs taken in their specific draft? I think would be an interesting case study too. I'm sure.
Yeah, it's now Saquon is helping that one because Saquon was the first back off the board in his draft. But it's a lot more scattershot than that quarterback question, because there are guys that are starting 5th round running backs.
But it's like also too, like a guy like Giddens from Kansas State. Like if he turned out to be an awesome player at the NFL level, like would anybody be surprised by that? And he probably won't even be, like anybody who watched him play, he's a hard runner. He's athletic. He's got some good burst. Like, I mean, like that's the thing that's so crazy to me about the NFL in general, Andy. And I'm sure I'll say this 9 more times in Wisconsin this week, but the amount of players who are truly special or really great players in college who don't even sniff playing time in the league just blows my mind.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I mean, because everybody's a freak, but not only is everybody a freak, everybody has just insane work ethic, because if you don't, you will lose your job tomorrow. And it's different. Now, I'll be curious to see how much the NIL era changes this, because we always wondered, like, there were certain guys who are like, well, if they start getting paid, they're going to take this a little more seriously. Well, they already started getting paid now. And in a lot of cases, they're making really good money in college. So does that kind of expose the ones who aren't willing to work as hard, or who don't? We always joke about the "do you love football" question that the GMs ask every player in the draft, but there's a reason they're asking that. They're asking, would you do this for free? Because if we pay you a lot of money, there's a chance that you may just check out because you got a lot of money. But we don't want that to happen.
Yeah. The running back position is really interesting too, because, on the heels of what happened with Nico this week, if running backs never get taken in the first round, which I think is going to start changing, as we go more and more back to the mean. But if running backs should and could demand more NIL compensation while they're putting the mileage on their bodies, because they're
also, do they make a bigger difference in college than they make in the NFL? Because I that's something, and we'll talk about this as the offseason goes on, because I've got a couple stories that I'm working on about like how to moneyball things in college football in this era. And I am curious because there's one I'm working on specifically right now where it has to do with a software tool. You have to decide how you want to weight different aspects, but you also have to decide how you want to split your budget up. And you can just do it the way the NFL teams do it, but I'm not sure that's the best way, because I think a running back in the NFL might not be as valuable as a great running back in college.
Right.
So it might be that they are worth, because like in the NFL, you may devote 8% of your salary cap to running backs. I'm just pulling these numbers out of thin air. In college, you may want to devote 12% of your budget to running backs. It just depends on how big of a difference they make. Like, we know how big of a difference quarterbacks make. We know how big of a difference edge rushers, offensive tackles make. But running backs may be a little bit different between the two leagues.
Right.
I'm glad you brought that up, though, because it does lead into our next question, which comes from Sean, which is an NIL era, like one of those that you never thought you'd even be asking 10 years ago. Hey, guys, something I can't make sense of that I'm hoping you guys can bring clarity to. Why did Quinn Ewers declare for the NFL instead of spending another year in college? Based on all the mock drafts, the earliest Ewers would go is the 4th round. The first pick in last year's 4th round is making a little over $1 million a year. Ewers would make between $3 and $5 million in college next year. Is this decision driven by the fear of further injuring himself or something else? Thank you. That's such a great question.
Is it?
And
bad?
I think
podcasting and be like, I don't know. Like,
we don't know, and I think Quinn Ewers would have to answer that question. And I know he's been asked it. I don't know that he's given like the full on answer. I think maybe once he gets drafted, he probably will give a little more introspective answer on that. I think this could be a bet on yourself situation because look, the real money in sports, whether this is your, whether it's football, basketball, whatever, the real money is the second contract in the pro league. So you go 1 year faster to the second contract by leaving college now. Ewers was asked about that on the Gruden's QB class. John Gruden's doing the QB school thing again, except with Barstool. And
cuss words.
Ewers said it was time for something new. And look, he made good money in college. So he's made some money playing quarterback. I think he probably just believes in himself and believes that he can stick in the league. And here's the thing, Ari. I think we all look at it like you're the starting quarterback at Texas. So anything less than being a 10-year starter in the NFL is a failure after that. Well, no, if Quinn Ewers is in the NFL drawing a paycheck for the next 15 years, whether he's a starter or not, like that's a success.
The who's the we're back guy? His name's escaping me. We're back. Texas quarterback. He's awesome.
Oh, Sam Ehlinger.
Sam Ehlinger. He's in the league still, isn't he?
Yeah, he's with the Colts.
Yeah, he
was with the Colts.
Yeah. So, the thing that I think is interesting though is that he has been somebody who's been injured every year. Okay. I don't know if he has one of those bodies that's just not durable enough to play this game. Some people just have them at a high level. So for me, if I were him personally, knowing that about myself, I probably would take the guaranteed money. Now, the question here is, he wasn't coming back to Texas, right? We have to acknowledge that the time that he spent at Texas had come to an end.
Right, because Arch was taking over. So it was going to be like not the same as Carson Beck's situation, because Carson Beck actually was going to go to the draft. And then when the Miami thing popped up, he's like, I think I'll do this. Oh, by the way, Sam Ehlinger now backing up Bo Nix with the Broncos.
Okay, got it. But still in the league 8 years later. Now, the secondary question is, if Quinn would have said, I'm entering the portal and not at the draft, would Miami have paid him Carson Beck money? Would that have lined up correctly? And if they wouldn't have, then the options at that point are pretty limited in terms of which programs are probably even in the market to pay. Like when you think about the highest profile quarterback transfer moves, the biggest one that comes to mind is Oklahoma. And I don't think that was an option, right? For obvious reasons.
No, I think they wanted John Mateer because they hired Ben Arbuckle as the OC from Washington State. He was like that. It might not have officially been a package deal, but it was a package deal.
This is a funny way of saying is the market is strong for Quinn Ewers in the NIL space as we think it is, just based on what other people are paying.
Could be.
Like at the time, because he would have had to made the decision before the spring portal, right? He wouldn't have had
but
the benefit of knowing.
We just heard that Joey Aguiar got slightly over $1 million from Tennessee, which is what he would, I believe, what he was supposed to get from UCLA. Quinn Ewers would have commanded that, at least, which is more than he would make as a 4th round draft pick.
But the question asserts that he would be making $3 to $4 million, and I don't know if that's a fact. That's the only thing.
Right? Yeah, we don't either. Yeah. So I do think, though, Ari, that if he'd stayed in college for one more year, somebody would have paid him more than he would make as a 4th round draft pick.
Agreed. And I think that he would have had a chance to maybe improve his draft stock. But at the same time, too, he probably, you know how much that man loves Texas?
A lot.
I don't know that he'd want to go be the starting quarterback at Georgia Tech or something. Like, I just,
But it's weird because he was at Ohio State for a year. So that's where I kind of.
That would have been crazy if he would have gone to Ohio State if they wanted, if they felt like they needed an extra year.
Yeah, run it back. Yeah.
Because that was like the rumor, right? People thought that Quinn Ewers was considering Ohio State at the end of the year. Like if you go back to January, that was a discussion point behind the scenes. So,
and I think it's interesting because now we're finally seeing all the COVID year guys are almost out of college football. So, because the NFL said like the NFL people were saying the drafts were not as deep because you had these COVID year guys who were going to be late round draft picks who were staying in college because they could make more money in college than they could as late round draft picks. Now they're out. And so we're seeing decisions like this, and it does make you kind of wonder, because I do think Quinn Ewers could have made more, but I also think if he's doing the math on it, if he probably thinks he's going to be a starting quarterback in the NFL, and if he is a starting quarterback in the NFL, which, given the trivia question I asked you about first rounders and not first rounders, is highly unlikely. But if he was, then being a year earlier to that second contract is still worth more than staying in school another year.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think it's a good question, and definitely probably something that he was internally battling. I don't think,
and I think we're going to see this every year. I think we're going to see this. There's going to be one or two quarterbacks every year who are right on that line of, I can make more in college, but if it works in the NFL, if I leave now, I still make more there.
But under any circumstance, normal circumstance too, Quinn Ewers wouldn't be backed up by Arch Manning. Like, this is a very interesting.
Correct. He would have had the option to stay at Texas. He did not have the option to stay at Texas.
There aren't a lot of people that have been as productive as Quinn has in his career who would not have been welcomed back for their final year.
Yeah, it's just a strange situation.
Right.
All right, this question is from Josh Gaddis, but not that Josh Gaddis.
It's not?
No, it is not the former offensive coordinator, but it's also not someone named Josh Gaddis. They named their account Josh Gaddis, Speed in Space, like the offensive coordinator. So it's sort of a parody account, but they ask serious questions all the time, and they're usually really good questions.
Yeah.
So here's this one. Do a snake draft for quarterback plus receiver combos who both not only have 2+ years of eligibility left in their schools, but will definitely both be in college football in 2026. Can do it for either 3 or 4 combos each. I disagree, fake Josh Gaddis. I only think we can do this for two each.
Well,
I can think of 4 here total.
4 that I think we would be on the same page with, but the question is, could you buy stock in players who may not play this year just to have them in 2 years?
Yeah, and I think you kind of have to. But let's just start. Do you want to have the first pick, or do you want me to have the first pick? Okay, you go ahead.
Dallas Wilson and DJ Lagway.
Okay, I figured that's who your first pick would be. So DJ Lagway is going to be sophomore at Florida. Dallas Wilson's an incoming freshman. They're very excited about him, 5-star guy. So they will definitely be playing together for at least 2 years. All right, so I get 2 picks, right?
Yes.
So I will take Julian Sayin and Jeremiah Smith.
Yeah.
Because I don't care who's throwing to Jeremiah Smith. I have Jeremiah Smith. I will also take Keelan Russell and Ryan Williams because I get Ryan Williams, who I know is great. And then Keelan Russell, I may not get him as the starter this year, but I might get him as a starter this year and next year. And the thing is, I can't take Ty Simpson because if Ty Simpson wins the Alabama job but balls out this season,
yes,
he's already been in college 4 years. He's going pro.
And this is where things really start to fall apart because you are drafting players that haven't played yet now, right?
Yeah. Because Keelan Russell, I don't know if he'll win the Alabama job. We think it's going to be Ty Simpson, but the problem is Ty Simpson might be in the NFL after a year, in which case Keelan Russell might be their starter in 26.
Right. So what you have to do is you have to draft a quarterback receiver combination where the receiver's awesome, but the quarterback might not have played at this point because quarterbacks are 1 year and done. Like, for instance, like even Jackson Arnold, because my next pick is Cam Coleman. Okay. So like my
that was mine, but I did Deuce Knight Cam Coleman because I know Deuce Knight's going to be there.
I would have gone Jackson Arnold, Cam Coleman, but Arnold could go to the draft if he has a great year this year, right? So
right.
my next pick would be Deuce Knight, Cam Coleman, and then if I go back, now I'm going to take 2 players that aren't playing much this year, and that'd be Mylan Graham and Tavian St. Clair, which are the 2 young Ohio State players.
At Ohio State, it's crazy that we had 2 Ohio State ones.
So, but like, honestly, you have to go with Ohio State receivers at this point, and they'll most certainly be. They might have one great year in 26, but like, I mean, it kind of falls apart after that in terms of like I mean, who are your next two? Do you have another two?
I don't have them. Like the four I came up with were Julian Say and Jeremiah Smith, Keelan Russell, Ryan Williams, DJ Lagway, Dallas Wilson, Deuce Knight, Cam Coleman. Those were the four.
Yeah. So it was that was a tougher scenario than you would have thought.
I love that question, though. It was a great thought exercise.
But here's the one that you might be able to take. Ryan Wingo and Diabell.
Ooh.
Like if you want to start going into like high school seniors. But then Diabell might not be the starting quarterback his freshman year, and then it was a worthless pick.
Yeah. It's so hard to do because
River in the back, Merklinger and Mike Matthews.
Merklinger and Mike Matthews might be the one
at all. Like I think in order to be draftable, one of the duo has to have already been a proven entity, right? Like because Ryan Wingo has 2 more years, and like here's another one like Josiah Trader, but I don't know what Miami quarterback you take. And then also too in college football. The freshman that you're taking will probably get like portaled over. Like this would be a lot easier to do in 2019 than it is now.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. So by the way, and I've gone down the rabbit hole because, now I've got a kid who he's in high school. So I'm looking at the recruits in his graduating class because we're starting to evaluate and rank those guys. And like, I'm sure you've heard of Trey Wright living in Texas. He's a class of 28 quarterback / basketball player. Like his Instagram videos are insane. Just the athleticism. I don't know how good of a quarterback he is yet, but the athleticism is insane. And it's weird to me knowing that these guys are the same age as my kid.
Yeah. Well, so I had a parent of a friend call me the other day. And his kid is, I'm not going to tell you who it is, but is a kid who's a 3-star prospect, borderline 3-star, who has a offer from everybody in the MAC. Okay. And he was basically calling and asking, what can my kid do to get Power 5, Power 4 interest? And my advice to him would be the same advice to everybody, which is get your kid to as many camps as possible in order to get
pick the ones you want to be interested in your kid and go to that camp. Especially because if they come in with offers from all the MAC schools, the coaches
will pay
at
attention.
the camp. The coaches at the school you're going to will know that, and will pay attention. Like they're going to look at your kid closely.
And here's what he said, because I thought it was an interesting scenario, which is going to wrap around to what you were saying about kids in your son's class. He said his son is a very productive high school football player. He's a defender and really, really good. I'll even tell you he's a linebacker and tackles, flies all over the field, has really good, ball recognition, can get in space and arrive at the ball handler. But he said he didn't want to enroll him in any camps because he is a kid that doesn't have a ton of natural athleticism and might test poorly. He's a much better football player.
Oh, I had that conversation with my son the other day. He came back because we're going to do some camps this summer. And he said, are we sure we want to do this? I don't know how good my 40 is going to be. I'm like, I don't care. Like, because you're a freshman in high school this year. Like, you're 40 and all that, all of the testing stuff will get better. But if your tape's good and your tape's good enough to get offers, it doesn't matter. And I have no idea if my son's going to get recruited or not. Like, we'll see. He's not of freakish size already, so we don't know how big he's going to wind up being. But like this guy that you're talking about, he's already got MAC offers.
Yes. Because he's a good
It doesn't matter what he runs.
But it brings me back to the initial point, which is there are some kids who are just freaks and don't have to work at it and will get to where they're going because they were put on earth to do that. And there are other kids that have to work and put tape out there and do everything they can in order to put themselves in that position. And I think like being rational about it as a parent of knowing of like, yeah, my kid is a good lineman or my kid's a good edge rusher, but he's not,
Well, the important thing is to be realistic about it because there are parents who get way out over their skis and don't understand the recruiting process and go into their son's senior year and don't understand why North Carolina and Arkansas aren't recruiting their kid, like, because they were never going to recruit your kid. Like, you would have known 2 years ago if schools like that were going to be recruiting your kid.
Yeah.
Like,
and my advice to you, and you already know it because you've been around this game as many way more years than I have been, is just like, don't beat yourself up over the great tape from a kid in your son's class, because it's like those freaks are going to be there. And
that's what I tell him, because like, I don't care if he plays college football. I don't know if he even wants to play college football, but he really likes playing football and he likes working at it. So I was like, look, you do the best you can at this, and we'll see how it goes. And now this is probably a situation where the world has changed. But end of my freshman year, I had not even played organized football yet.
Mm-hmm.
So the thought of being recruited, being on a college football roster had not even crossed my mind. And to be honest, it didn't become something I even thought about until after my junior season, when a coach from Air Force showed up at my school to talk to me. And I asked my head coach, I'm like, why are they talking to me?
Yeah. Well,
and he's like, because they might want you to play with them. I was like, why?
Because you're
Have they seen my tape?
Yeah. But, I think you're going to be very seasoned and you know how this world works. So you'll figure it out. But
yeah, it's interesting to see, because like the pressure, I'm empathizing more with the parents that we deal with in the recruiting space, because the pressure's pretty tough. And it's interesting because of all these, football's the most democratic of these sports.
Right.
It's way worse in lacrosse and volleyball and all of those, where it's very club based, and holy crap, it's political and expensive and everything else. At least with football, you kind of have an idea. Like, you put some good tape out there, you pick and choose your camps, like go show out, and they're going to figure it out. But
yeah.
it is tough. And so parents out there who are got kids in the recruiting process right now, I feel you. Like, I can sense where that pressure comes from. And because it's hard. Like, and we've talked about this with the Nico stuff. This is where I don't, as much as I have criticized Nico's dad, it's hard to not believe your kid is the greatest thing since sliced bread. It's really hard.
Everybody thinks that. I feel like that.
Yeah, exactly. So
I actually became an overbearing parent at a gymnastics class.
Really?
Yeah.
We have one more question, but I need to hear this first.
Okay. Yeah.
Go ahead.
So we have her in gymnastics on Friday night, and she's 3 and she's very eccentric. And my daughter is very athletic for her age, very fast and agile. And if you've seen my wife, she's got the perfect body for gymnastics. She's got a pretty thick lower core while also remaining light and small. And she is clearly, and I'm not just being a parent that, thinks that their daughter's better at everything. Like, I think she's got like attention span problems. Like, I can see where her weaknesses are. But the thing that was difficult was that they won't advance her to the next level with the older kids where she belongs, clearly based on her ability, because she doesn't listen well enough during the classes. Like, she runs off and does it. And like the
natural athletic ability comes from your wife. The not listening comes from you.
Yeah. So she's the perfect combination of me and my wife. But I was like, what do you mean she doesn't listen well enough? She's 3. She doesn't know what planet she's on. What are you talking about?
I love it.
Yeah.
But that is, and new parents don't get this. Like, they don't understand. Like, this comes at you quick. You assume like it's not going to happen till your kids are teenagers. This stuff comes at you when they're 3, 4 years old.
I'm sitting there on the edge, like, and I'm watching her go through their routines, and she's doing her cartwheels and all that stuff. And like, I found myself like sitting on the edge of my seat, like, stick that landing, baby. Like, I was like into it. Like, and I don't know if that means I'm going to be a gymnastics dad, but like, I wanted her to do well and I want her to succeed, But I don't know.
Producer River has a question for Dear Andy Ari. Is it easier with kid 2 compared to kid 1? No, because kid 2 brings a different flavor of chat. Like, you don't worry about as many things with kid 2 because you don't wrap them in bubble wrap. But especially when they get into their whatever their thing is, you get just as competitive. So I am just as interested and devoted to whatever my daughter is doing in ballet as what my son is doing in football. Like, both are equally important to that kid. So you got to make sure that you are supporting them in the way you have to support them. And like you said, Ari, like, there are times when you get frustrated because, why are they not moving along or advancing? They're clearly better than these kids. Why are they being stuck? Like, it's tough. It's tough. And you got to have those conversations with the kid, and you have to figure out, do we have them in the right place? Like, do we have our kid at the right ballet studio? Is our kid playing in the right football program? Like, these are all questions you have to ask.
In acquiring property because of the school district that you think they might thrive in, even though you have no idea what that means.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. One more question. It is a pure college football question. Also one that, if you'd asked me this 5 years ago, I would have laughed. But this is a legitimate question now. It's from Andrea. After Indiana's meteoric rise last season, what do you think happens this year? It's crazy to think a 3-loss season would be disappointing to the fan base. Okay, I don't think that Indiana fans have gotten that spoiled with one good year. Like, if they went 9-3 this year, nobody's really disappointed, right, Ari?
No, I don't think they're disappointed. I think that if they were to regress to 8-4 or 9-3, that would be a pretty good place to regress to, because I think that would be like a sign of growth and movement, right? A program that was the glorified bye week for everybody every single weekend, 4 or 5 years ago, now is a team that is a tough out. And the thing that is interesting about the transfer portal era is that teams and coaches can do a magnificent job of turning around programs very quickly. If you hit the right 3 or 4 guys in the portal, you're in a position where you're moving it a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. But the difference between flipping a team and flipping a program is very different, and I think we lose sight of that because just because Indiana made the playoff last year doesn't mean that everything's fixed and they're a power now. That you change a program through years of consistency. Like, Indiana will have made it when 8-4 is a bad year. 8-4 is a relatively successful year for them. So no, I don't think that I don't like speaking for fan bases, and maybe I'm off on this, but I don't think that 9-3 would be disappointing. What I think it would be is a reminder of how sweet winning is, because you're dormant for so long, you forget what feeling a part of the deal is like, and then you finally get a taste of that playoff run, and then you realize how crappy purgatory is. Like that's
Well, listen, they've scheduled for success here. So ODU, Kennesaw State, Indiana State to kick things off. They should start 3-0. But the Big Ten gets real very quickly because they open with Illinois, and the following week they're at Iowa. Then they get a bye week, and then they're at Oregon. So if they can be 1-2 in Big Ten play, so let's say you start 4-2 in the first half of the season, I think 8 wins is very, very realistic. 9 wins is realistic. Fascinated by that UCLA game because obviously we've talked a ton about UCLA with Nico going there, but for Indiana's purposes, UCLA is going to be running Indiana's offense. So right. Mike Shanahan is the offensive coordinator at Indiana. He's still there calling the plays. He called the plays last year, but their quarterbacks coach Tino Sunseri has gone to UCLA as the offensive coordinator and is bringing that offense to UCLA. So, will Indiana's defense be better prepared for UCLA because they're essentially playing their own offense that they see all the time? I don't know.
Yeah, but I think it's a good sign that we are talking about this. And and I don't want to lose track of Indiana. I don't want them to just if they start off, 1-4 or 2, and that probably won't happen with their schedule.
Well, they ain't starting off 1-4, or not scheduling like that. They're not.
If they get off to a less than expected start, we should still.
Yeah, but the meat of their Big Ten schedule is the first 3 games. They do have to play Penn State after that later in the season, but the Illinois, Iowa, Oregon, 3 games in a row. You got the bye week between Iowa and Oregon, but they're both on the road. You got to win one of those.
Well,
I
the
think
good
you got
news
to win
for
one of those three.
Indiana is that if they somehow pull off, like, what if Sig's transfers are all awesome again and we're underestimating them again? The good news is that Indiana won't have to hear about how easy their schedule was this year. If they actually get to the finish line this year, they'll be in a position where they'll be, not questioned from a legitimacy standpoint. But yeah, no, I think that this is a fun program, and I'm hoping that as we continue to see the results, whether or not they actually have something sustainable will be interesting to analyze.
Fernando Mendoza, your new starting quarterback at
That's
Indiana,
good.
coming from Cal. Loved watching this guy at Cal. He replaces Curtis Rourke, so we'll see how well he does in that offense. But yeah, I think I'm excited to see what Curt Sidnetti does in year 2. If we look at his history, those teams have stayed good. So I don't think Indiana is going to be a flash in the pan. It will be interesting to see if they ever get spoiled. I always talk about Ari, growing up as a South Carolina fan, then watching Steve Spurrier have some really good seasons there, beat Clemson multiple times in a row, and all of a sudden South Carolina fans start thinking 10 wins and beating Clemson is a birthright, and it ain't. It's tough.
Yep.
And so Kentucky fans are going through that now after Mark Stoops raised the floor of the program, and now they're like, wait a second.
And then coaches ultimately get hung out to dry later on in their careers based on the standard that they created, which is kind of how it happens. So,
so Coach Siggs
winning nectar.
Yeah, Coach Siggs still in the honeymoon phase, but I do think he's going to keep them at a pretty high level. So I'm really excited to see what they do. That they were the story of college football last year, and I hope they're one of the stories of college football again this year, because they were certainly fun to watch last year. So
you win, Google.
Ari, I'm very excited. When next we see each other, we'll be in Green Bay. Well, actually, we'll be in the Milwaukee airport, headed to Green Bay.
We're going to have to talk about that logistically, because I don't know when you land.
I'm not telling you. You're just having to guess.
I'll figure it out. I'll run a car.
I'll show up in the rental car. Beep, beep, beep. All right. Great Wisconsin Tailgate presented by Culver's. We will be there. Across the street from Lambeau Field. We talking draft. ButterBurgers will be there. Fresh frozen custard will be there. Wisconsin cheese curds will be there. There's nothing better. Nothing better. We will see you in Green Bay.